ಹೇ ಗೈಸ್, ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ಮೈ ಚಾನಲ್. ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಲೋಕಿ. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ವಿಡಿಯೋದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆ ಅಯೋವಾ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧನ ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ನಿಮಗೆ. ಈ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆದರೆ ಲೈಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಡೆಮೋ ಸಿಟಿಯಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ 5 ನಿಮಿಷ ಮಾತ್ರ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು ರೀಚ್ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ. ನೀವು ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಸಾಟರ್ಡೆ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ನಾವು ವಿಸಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಮುಂಚೆ ನೀವು ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಹೊಸಬರು ನಮ್ಮ ಚಾನಲ್ನ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ತಪ್ಪದೆ ಲೈಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ನೀವೀಗ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಅಯೋವಾ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗು. ನಮ್ಮ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕಕ್ಕೆ ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧ ಹೇಗೆ ಕರಿತೀವೋ ಅದು ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಸೊ ಅದೇ ಥರ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋಣ ಬನ್ನಿ. ಈಗ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ನೋಡೋಣ ಬನ್ನಿ. ಇದು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ನಾನು ವಿಸಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನೋಡಿಲ್ಲ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಇದು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಎಂಟ್ರೆನ್ಸು. ಮಂಡೇ ಟು ಸಾಟರ್ಡೇವರೆಗೂ ಇದೆ, ಸಂಡೇ ಹಾಲಿಡೇ. ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಎಂಟ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಇದೆ. ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟು ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಒಳಗಡೆ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ ಚೆಕಪ್ ಇದೆ. ಒಳಗಡೆ ಎಂಟರ್ ಆದ ತಕ್ಷಣವೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಏನೇನಿದೆಯೋ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ಯಾಕೇಜನ್ನು ನಾವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ ಕ್ಯಾಮ್ರಾ ಹತ್ರ ಇಡಬೇಕು. ಅಲಾರಾಮ್ ಏನೇ ಕೊಂಡೋಗಿದ್ರು ಎಲ್ಲನೂ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಏನಾದ್ರು ವೆಪನ್ಸ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಥವಾ ಏನಾದರೂ ಹಾರ್ಮ್ಫುಲ್ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಬ್ಯಾಗ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಅದಾದಮೇಲೆ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟಾಗಿ ಫ್ರೀ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿ ಚೆಕಿಂಗ್ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ಗೆ ಅಂತ ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ರೂಮ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ. ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ರೂಮ್ಸ್ ಈ ಥರ ಇದೆ. ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಬೇಕಂತಂದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಸೋಫಾ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧನ ಕಟ್ಟೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿದ ಇಟ್ಟಿಗೆಗಳನ್ನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಗೆ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನೇನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಗೆ. ಮೇಲೆ ಗೋಲ್ಡನ್ ಡೂಮ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಯಾವ ಲೆವೆಲಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅವರು ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಗೋಲ್ಡನ್ ಡೂಮ್ನ ನೋಡೋವಂಥದ್ದು 8ನೇ ಲೆವೆಲಲ್ಲಿ, ನಾವೀಗ ಇರೋದು ಮೊದಲನೇ ಲೆವೆಲ್ಲು. ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧದಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಕ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಸೀಸರ್ ಶೂಟ್ನ ಲಿವಿಯೋ ಆಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ನೋಡಿ.
Come on, do it fast.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Let's cut him. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Shoot.
ನಾವೀಗ ಇರೋದು ಅಯೋವಾ ಸ್ಟೇಟಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂಥ ಡಿಮೈನ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಸಿಟಿ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಈಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಮೂಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ G8 G091 ಅಂತ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ MLAಗಳು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಅಂಥ ರೂಮ್ಗಳು. ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಇರೋದು ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟು, ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧ. ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಅದು. ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ಸೆನೇಟರ್ ರೂಮ್ಗಳಿದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ರೂಮ್ ಕೂಡ ಇದೆ. ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಪೋಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಈ ಥರ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ರೂಮ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಇದು 23 ಕ್ಯಾರೆಟ್ ಗೋಲ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು. ಹೊರಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಥರ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಒಳಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ಈ ಥರ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ತುಂಬ ಕೂಲಾಗಿದೆ, ನನಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆಯಿತು ಈ ಪ್ಲೇಸು. ಇವಾಗ ಈ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿಸಿಟರ್ನ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನ ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಟೈಮಿಂಗ್ಸ್ನ ಅಲಾಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಎವ್ರಿ 30 ಮಿನಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ 40 ಮಿನಿಟ್ಸ್ ಒಂದ್ಸರಿ ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ನಮಗೆ ಈಗ ಅವರು 1:30ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಬಂದಾಗ 1:20 ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ 10 ಮಿನಿಟ್ಸ್ ವೆಯ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋಣ ಬನ್ನಿ. ಈ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆದರೆ ಲೈಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿರುವಂಥ ಬೆಲ್ ಐಕಾನ್ ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ನಾವು ಯಾವುದೇ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಬಂದು ತಲುಪುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಟೂರ್ ಗೈಡ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಅವರು ನೇಮಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಈಗ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟಾಗಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾನು ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳೋದ್ರನ್ನ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ತುಂಬ ನಮಗೆ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಅವರು ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಬರುತ್ತೋ ಅವ್ರು ನೋಡಿ. ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಬರದೇ ಇರೋರು ಸಬ್ಟೈಟಲ್ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತೀನಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು.
WW2 Memorial.
This is where I like to start because what's cool about this glass floor This was here when the Capitol was built and when it was completed in 1886. But because there was no ventilation in the ground floor, they actually took this glass floor out. And when I was a kid growing up in Des Moines, I came to the Capitol, they had a railing just like this here. And then I think it was about 2003, they put the glass floor back in. And the idea being behind this Capitol is that they're going to do their best to restore it to the way that it once was when it was completed in 1886. You know, I've never been to another state capitol, but apparently that's supposed to be the best. I've never been, but we actually had somebody who had gone to all capitals. They came and they told us just last week this is the best that they saw. You can see throughout the Capitol what will look like wallpaper. Nothing is wallpaper. This is all hand. You can see the gold is actual gold. It's called gold leaf. And I heard that you were talking to Joni, and she was talking about our dome. Our dome is the biggest dome in the country, and it has gold leaf atop that dome. And I believe the gold leaf at 23 3/4 carat is like a strand of your hair. It's super thin. And if you were to take all of that gold leaf off the dome, it would be the equivalent maybe the size of a baseball. But throughout this Capitol, you will see gold leaf just about everywhere. The other thing that I would say about this Capitol, when I'm coming in every day now, right? I love doing this. Every day I come in, there's something that I haven't seen from the day before. One of the things that people don't notice, we've got around 27 different quotes. And people like fail to look up, except for the rotunda, which is pretty awesome. So look around, and as you see things, if you've got questions, I will do my best to answer them. When the tour is over, if you want to continue to walk around and look at some light, by all means, you can certainly do that. The cool thing about being on a guided tour is a day like today, I can get you into the law library, for example, Senate and the House chambers. Normally, we wouldn't be able to do that on the beach. So with that, how about we go this way? And I do have my laser pointer? Good, I do. Iowa was part of the Wisconsin Territory. And as the Wisconsin territory grew, it would include the Michigan Territory. And these were some of the capitals of what would have been considered part of the Wisconsin into the Michigan Territory. And eventually, when Iowa became a state in 1846, the capital was in Iowa City. Have you seen that capital? Iowa City? Yep, and that capital still exists. It is part of the University of Iowa. You can take classes there if you're interested. And what happened after 1846, as there was a population growth and we began that westward expansion throughout Iowa, people said, you know what, we need to make our capital more centrally located. And that's when we decided, okay, let's go to Des Moines. When we came to Des Moines, they built this thing. It's a big brick box. And it's funny, somebody last week said it looks like a prison. It was probably not the most aesthetically appealing. And shortly after they had that, they decided we need a new capital. And that's when they began building in 1871 the building that you are now in, our capital. There's some, 14 million bricks. There's 11 different types of wood. There's 29 different types of marble. And the man who is really considered the man that really built this capital, this guy, Robert Finkbein. He was a legislator who eventually became the superintendent of construction. In Iowa City, there was a Finkbein golf course named after Robert Finkbein. He actually used to stand outside on the west side every morning, and he would hire the workers, whether they were woodcutters, whether they were artists, whatever they were, and he would hire them for the day. But before they left for the day and they wanted to get paid, it was Robert Finkbein who meticulously looked at everything each worker did before they would get paid. This capital cost around $3 million to build. And again, Robert Finkbein, being as meticulous as he was, there was a discrepancy at the end of the day of $3.77, which Robert Finkbein made very clear it was not his fault. You also have our list of governors going even before Iowa became a state. It was just a territory. I think what is kind kind of interesting. Our Governor Terry Branstad, he is the longest, or was the longest serving governor in the country. He was elected to his 6th term before being appointed ambassador of China. That's when his lieutenant governor, Kim Reynolds, took over, and then she was elected in 2018. Yep, 2018. These are some of the tools that were used to build the Capitol. It was done by hand. And I'd ask that you take particularly close attention right here to the fire of 1904. We're going to be referring to this throughout this tour. This was supposed to be a fireproof building, in the same way the Titanic was supposed to be on the sinking. And this Capitol actually would have burned down if not for one man, which we will eventually get to when we get to the House chambers. But you can see these are the actual photographs. You can see right here in the House chambers where the fire was, the ceiling crashed down to the ground. And we will eventually get to those House chambers, and I'll explain a little bit more about the fire. And again, if there are any questions as we go along, feel free to ask. Any questions with anything having to do with
So
our
what did that one man do to save the building?
I don't want to spoil this.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure we get to it.
Unless you leave the tour early.
No.
But this was supposed to be fireproof. In fact, Robert Pickbein wanted to build a building that would last 1,000 years. So we still have another 800 plus years to go. We're on record. Over here we have the USS Iowa. This actually weighs 1,350 pounds. The real USS Iowa is 800 feet long. To put that in some perspective, if you look out the window to the west, you see the principal building. The principal building is about 600 feet high. So add another 200 feet, lay it on its size, and that would be the equivalent, roughly, of the USS Iowa. Today, the USS Iowa is housed at the Port of Los Angeles. It is a pretty cool museum. While I've never actually been on that tour, you can do an online tour. And if you are a resident of Iowa and you're actually out there, then you can take that tour for free. The USS Iowa has 103 guns. This was commissioned for World War II. Of the 103 guns, the big 6 here, big 3 in the back, those can fire guns that will go 26 miles. Putting that in perspective, that's from here to Ames. During World War II, President Roosevelt used this ship, transporting him to the conference in Tehran. And because it was President Roosevelt, they put in a bathtub and they put in an elevator. And at the end of World War II, with the signing of the treaty, it was supposed to be aboard the USS Iowa. But after President Roosevelt passed away and President Truman took over, President Truman from Missouri wanted the treaty to be signed on the USS Missouri. But it was the USS. Behind, right here, is the reconnaissance lines. And of course, those would go be sent off and spy on the enemy. You have these right here that would be put out over the ocean. The planes would take off. They would land back into the ocean, and then you'd have these cranes right here that would lift those planes back up. Why does it have what? Oh, this thing right here? This thing. Above the plane.
That's connected to the plane.
Oh, that's just so that it doesn't fall from the model.
Oh, okay.
It's all tied together. We actually used to have the bells of the USS Iowa. One bell. There are 2 bells aboard the USS Iowa, but they wanted it back, so it's now a bells. Over here, I like this. I think that's why this way too often. But this is to commemorate the women's suffrage movement, the 19th Amendment. And what I do love about this, you can see the torch is being passed to the future. And they are women. You have here an artist, you have a teacher, you have a doctor, you have a mother, you have a musician, you have an engineer. symbolizing the growth of the women's movement and how far we've come. This was done, I think, in 1936, and I believe the 19th Amendment was added to the Constitution in 19. Obviously, a tribute to our fallen heroes. And some of them
War by dance. They were all fought in the war. The flag is to honor them. Yeah, that's why they were memorial for them.
Oh, really? So Governor Ray, before Governor Ransom, was our longest serving governor in the 1960s and the 1970s. Billy Ray, she's right there. She had this idea to have a display case for our First Ladies of Iowa. And she wanted to make sure that these First Ladies would be represented by the gowns. And so each one is actually wearing the gown that they would have worn. I think the earliest First Ladies, we don't have a record of what they wore, but we have an idea given the time period of what they may have worn. And you can see by their face, they all look alike. And that's because when the model was made, they actually used the face of Billy Ray, the governor's wife. And it's interesting because now we have a first gentleman, Kevin Reynolds. So, is he from South Dakota?
No, South Dakota of the first gentleman.
Oh, okay. Excellent. 1919. And it was originally done in black and white, and then they colored it. But this is the 168th Infantry Regiment that was, there was this makeshift arch over here. And you can see this is the way it's going to look back in 19. There are really no other buildings, with the exception of an old school, which no longer exists. And this is the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, recognizing those who served during the Civil War, is still there. Again, it's just one of the monuments we get a chance to walk around. That old, big block that was once our capital, that's where it was. And eventually, for better or for worse, it did burn down, which might have been for the best. It was really just awesome. The other interesting thing about this picture is that when it was eventually colored, the person who colored it took our flag, and instead of going blue, white, red, went red, white, blue. Which is an easy pass because we really didn't even have a flag in it. It wasn't introduced to the state of Iowa until 1920 or 21. And the other interesting thing is right up here, that dark spot. Over time, and especially because this Capitol was originally gas-lit, gas lamps, people were smoking, this became, that's the way that it looked. I mean, the color eventually went out, so they had to take Q-tips, and they actually had to go, as we watch the Supreme Court chambers, you'll see that there is some that's coming away. Their job is to go and behind you.
Why are Coke bottles also put in there?
I'm sorry?
Coke bottles also put in there, why?
That is a great question, and one that I'm afraid I can't answer, but I'm going to find out. Because that's interesting. Yes. Sit back, relax. These chairs are actually pretty comfortable. These chairs date back to the Capitol being built. They're over 150 years old.
These microphones?
These are microphones. And this used to be the Supreme Court. We have all three branches. You have the executive branch, the governor and lieutenant governor. You have the judicial branch, which is in here. And of course, you have the legislative branch, we'll get to the Senate and the House. But the judicial branch would meet here up until 2003. In 2003, the judicial branch realized that it was too small. It was growing, so if you look to our south, there's the judicial branch building. The Supreme Court made their decisions here in this room. Supreme Court justices would actually use this door, and there's a spiral staircase that goes up to our law library. It is one of the biggest law libraries in the country, with over 105 law books. We'll eventually get there. It's one of the coolest rooms in this building. They would come down, they would deliberate, they would discuss, and then eventually they would make their decision from this bench. I'll get to the bench in a second, although I should tell you, even if you look at the walls, right? The I for Iowa, the scales of justice, this is not wallpaper. It's hand painted. All of it. Behind the bench, this is all hand painted. The artists, they create the stencils, they use the stencils. The ceiling, this is not the original ceiling. The original ceiling had these beautiful allegorical murals, which, if you do go to the judicial branch, you will see those murals. But in the fire of 1904, which occurred above this room in the House chambers, as they were trying to put out the fire, the ceiling sustained enough water damage, they had to take those murals out. This is the chandelier that has been hanging here since the completion of the Capitol in 1886. Originally it was gas, and of course they redid it, so now it is, this is our room. Originally there were 5 state Supreme Court justices. Robert Finkbein, the superintendent of construction, he wanted somebody really, really good to carve the woodwork into this bench. This is a piece of mahogany that was actually owned by Robert Finkbein. And he was looking for a wood carver. The story is, again, he was on the west side, and he was hiring people left and right. And he wanted somebody with a lot of experience. And a young man, aged 24, named William Metzger, said, I can do it. Well, Finkbein gave him a chance, and sure enough, Robert Finkbein carved in, and you can go up here and you can look at different symbols for the 5 state Supreme Court seats. What would eventually happen was that our state Supreme Court would grow. And so 40 years after William Metzger carved this bench, they sought out William Metzger. And I don't know, I mean, the story's a little bit different. Some say Minneapolis, some say somewhere in Des Moines or Chicago. The point is, it was a 64-year-old William Metzger that would eventually add on these 3 panels and those 3 panels. And when you come up here and look, you can actually see there is the seam. And I can't tell you exactly what every symbol means. There is an owl, which I think most people would assume is for the wisdom of the Supreme Court. There's a snail. I couldn't tell you what that means. It suggested that William Metzger was poking fun at the judicial branch, that sometimes laws and those decisions take a really, really long time at a snail's pace. But if you like, you can go right up to the bench and you can look at these wood carvings, take your time, and then we'll move on to consultation. In the wall, and then you just simply take down. Today, there is one of those Murphy beds which nobody uses, but that's also in the judicial branch building. The Capitol has 24 fireplaces. I don't know if any of them were ever used. They're marble fireplaces, again, I think it's just for the aesthetics. It looks pretty cool. The windows were closed shut many years ago, but they have these vents. So that when you get too hot and stuffy, they would pull that down. They actually have this little vent here where you can open this to let some of the air in. But this is the consultation room. Any questions about our consultation room?
Does this also use for committee?
Yeah, House committee members will come in here and they will also meet in this room. This and the Supreme Court. And with that, I think we can go from the first floor to the second floor and see our. By the way, the tile on the first floor, and only the first floor. This is not the original tile. This was built in the 1950s. The reason being that because this is glass floor now. The Capitol was being built in Illinois. Illinois State Capitol. But the problem was, especially in the 1870s and the 1880s, They were scantily clad. You can see this lady's knee, which would have been considered inappropriate if you were living in Illinois at the time. There are some cleavage issues. So Iowa took it. And it wasn't until about maybe 10 years ago that Illinois said, well, we want those back. Iowa said no. But they can come, they can take photographs and restore it as they like, and I believe they have these replicas in the Illinois State Capitol. You have carvings out of alabaster here. Again, when the tour's over, if you want to come back, you may not want to take a quick look. You've got really cool different reptiles, there's a bat here, different fruits. But again, that is all hand carved in that element. And with that, we'll just go ahead and walk up. Again, we have elevators, and you've got these elevators on the side. Otherwise, and again, this is the original tile. They built this frame, and of course, there was nothing in it. And so they commissioned a gentleman by the name of Edwin Blatchfield to create this picture, which is called Westward. And it has 6 different panels, and it is the idea of westward progression. It is people moving from the east, traveling to the west, to the frontier that is dying out. And it's being replaced by a new generation, pioneers that are moving to the west. And you can see these spirits are leading that westward progression. You have this one with Book Enlightenment, you have the seal of the state of Iowa, and you have the seeds planting that progression. This woman, her name is Jessica Penn, and in the early 1900s, she was a very famous supermodel from Des Moines, which is kind of fun. Behind this progression, you have these spirits, and here's somebody who is carrying the steam engine, and one here carrying what is a dynamo, a battery. And that is to symbolize the idea of technology coming with that westward movement. And what I love about our westward painting is that if you look into our field of dreams, you see people coming from the north. It was built for something. It wasn't until, I believe, 1907 that these mosaics were done. These were done by a gentleman named Frederick Dielman of New York. He drew them out. He sent this to Venice, Italy. Venice, Italy broke 500,000 little pieces of glass about the size of a thumbnail, and they created these mosaics. These are 6 fundamentals of our government, including our 3 branches, the executive, the legislature, the judicial, and including education, charities, and defense. Now, when we get up there, there's some cool art plane that I don't remember what the name is, but it will follow you. The feet will follow you. The eyes, like the Mona Lisa, will follow you as you look at these mosaics. And again, as we get up there, right here is the building that you are in. That is our state capitol. Here is our old state capitol, now the University of Iowa. And this was our old historical. No greater tribute to Iowa than corn. And Floyd Bracken was famous. So with that,
is the old state capitol still around? Or
yeah, it's in Iowa City. It's used today as part of the University of Iowa and college classes.
Oh,
I do love, this is kind of one of these little things right here, at 5 o'clock on a Friday time. That some worker put that in a rush to leave. Probably Robert Finkbein, the superintendent, didn't like that, but at that point, there's not a whole lot they could do. But in the entire Capitol, that's really the one blemish.
Oh, I see.
The half moons. And again, those were commissioned to a gentleman by the name of Kenyon Cox. And it's supposed to show the progression of civilization. So beginning here with the herd, the hunt, the herd, there's agriculture. When we get to the other side, you'll see it eventually will end with the idea of art, symbolizing the ultimate of enlightenment in that progression of civilization. The statues above, this was a French gentleman by the name of Coltin. And those statues also represent the ideas of civilization. This one, for example, is representing education. This is representing law. This is actually one of my favorite. You have somebody looking in a mirror. It's representing truth. There's no greater truth than what you see in a mirror. This is really representative of Iowa. This is agriculture. And if you come this way just a little bit, places that you obviously cannot get to, this is one of the coolest rooms in the Capitol. Its claim to fame not only are the 105,000 different law books that today lawyers and members of our legislature can go in and check out. The section that I will show you is for the public. You can actually check those books out, not a whole lot, but you can get a library card for the state capitol. We also have books. One of those books dates back to the 14th century. It is a hymnal from the 1300s. You also have a law book by Benjamin Franklin, The Laws of Pennsylvania. Question? Oh, well, again, perfect example of restoring this Capitol to the way it once looked. So our artists are going to come back and they're going to make this look like that. The other cool piece about this, not just the Benjamin Franklin books of Laws of Pennsylvania, which he actually did on his own printing press. You also have one of the smallest law books. There's another. With that, let me do this again. School for the Gifted, and the guy's pushing on it, and it says pull when he's pushing. There we go. I knew it was going to happen.
And there's a video show that looks like this library, but I usually go upstairs.
They would come, they would check out whatever books they needed, and they would deliberate and make decisions. And in this area, again, is for the public. This is where anyone can check out a book as long as you have a library card from the state capitol. Anyone else would have to be a member of the legislature or a lawyer to check out any of these books. And the librarians, they will take the spiral staircases. You can see behind these bookshelves, there's this kind of open area. They actually walk behind, and it goes all the way to the end. And there's this little dumbwaiter, an elevator for books, which I believe they could potentially still use. But it's a rope pulley system so that they can bring books to the top. And again, we talk about the fire of 1904, which we'll get to. But it goes back to like real estate law of 1932.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to go back to that far, you can find it. And to be honest with you, everything is online. Right? It's a lot. In fact, for the younger crowd, this is what they used to call. Not very many. We can't offer one. That's why usually you're outside of these doors.
You'll see picture of Joe Biden and the other person that I was seeing from Mount Rushmore and
Lincoln. Yeah.
Gonna eat the M&Ms. Huh?
This is our Senate chambers. And again, if this were during the week when the legislature is not in session, it's smaller than we are now. Nutrients and so on and so forth, we become larger. Our state Senate is comprised of 50 state senators, and they represent 60,000 Iowans each. I believe they have an annual salary of $25,000 to $30,000. The legislative session begins the second Monday in January and lasts for 100 days. And the incentive for those representatives is to get their job done, because they're only paid for those 100 days. And after 100 days, if they're not done, they're still coming in and doing the work.
Oh.
You do have the office of the senators, and they are these desks right here. These desks date back to when the Capitol was built, along with the chairs. And next to them would be where their assistants would usually sit. Back in the day, when members of our legislature would vote, they would write a yay or nay vote on a piece of paper. They would be read aloud. Today, with the beauty of electricity, you have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons. The green button is a yay vote, and when they hit the green button, it will actually show up here. Senator Bizignano would show up as green. If they voted red, obviously that's a nay vote. Their name, Senator Kelsey, would light up in red. You also have a yellow button to vote, or just to say that you are present, that you are here. You have a white button to use the microphone, and that blue button is for a page. If you're a high school student, if you're a junior or a senior, you can fill out and apply to become a page. And what that means is that if a member of the legislature, either in the Senate or the House, if they need something, the simplicity of a cup of coffee, for example, they would ask for one of those pages. It is a paid position, and I do think they actually work with students that if you're coming from different places of Iowa to try and find places for you to stay. These chandeliers, these are the original chandeliers, and again, they were transferred to electricity. They were originally gaslit. You have a crane, which is now a button, which is in the attic. And when you have the image of an attic, it's not like an attic that you have to crawl through. I mean, it's a big walk space. But above in the attic, there's a button. It will actually lower these chandeliers down. They're huge. Each one weighs about 500 pounds. It lowers it down, and they will change the light bulbs. Back in the day, they would light the gas. You also have these murals. There's one on the other side, which is cool, but not quite as cool as this one. I like this. You know, it is the idea of education, and behind that idea of education, of course, is our state capitol. You have members of the general public. They can sit up here or sit where you're sitting now. Obviously, they can't talk or be disruptive during legislative sessions. You also have members of the media. They usually sit here. The president of the Senate, who would sit here. And interestingly enough, I didn't know this. We have pictures of Lincoln and Washington, but it's the president of the United States, which in most legislative sessions for state legislatures, they would actually have a picture of their governor. But for whatever reason, we have a picture of our president, and I'm trying to think what else I can tell you about this room. It's actually interesting, somebody said when they get to the House chambers, they'll see the curtains are brown, right? And why are these red? The only thing that I can think is that in the Senate, it's simply more formal. Gentlemen, for example, always have to wear a sport coat in this room. I think of red as being a little more regal, kind of being royal, and I just look at it as being a little more formal. So here's what I did. Usually, if this was during the week, so if you follow me, and we'll go to the House chambers.
It's very cute. ఇలా ముక్కలు ముక్కలు చేశారా?
I'm super confused, Mommy. Isn't it confusing that we just went in a loop, but it's
Feel free to come on
different?
and have a seat. We have seats down here too. Down here and to my right. The 100 members of the House of Representatives. They serve and represent 30,000 Iowans each. Again, they do have an annual salary, but they do serve for exactly 100 days, beginning the second Monday in January. The representatives, just like in the Senate chambers, they do have these buttons that they can push, either to vote yay, nay, vote present or be present, use the microphone, or ask for the assistance of a page. You also have, just like in the Senate, you have members of the general public that can come and observe, so long as they don't say or disrupt the proceedings. You also have members of the media that can sit here. And then behind these curtains are the committee rooms. And it was behind this curtain in 1904 in January that a worker was working in House Committee Room number 5. And in that room, he left a light or a candle that was burning. He left the candle tipped over. That's how the fire started. And the fire raged. It destroyed the ceiling. This is not the original ceiling. It fell down to the ground. These are not the original chandeliers. They also fell down to the ground. And it was the man who understood the ventilation shaft. Because what was happening was, they had a fire truck. Way to go, look at those pictures. There's also a newspaper clipping from...
చూడు
Take a moment, relax. Take a look. We call it the inner dome and the outer dome. There's about a 3-foot space. So workers can go, and if there's a light, if there's a bulb that needs to be replaced, they go in from behind, they'll take it out, replace it as needed. You'll also know here, 1861 and 1865, that was done in 1922. And that was to commemorate those times we fought in the Civil War in 1922. There was a parade for those veterans, and they offered this to the governor. He liked it so much, he said, we are going to push that and put that in our dome. Unfortunately, in 1998, there was some significant destruction in our capital, and because of that vibration, that actually fell into a billion little pieces, so that is a replica of what they had in 1922. And that blue sky above the clouds, that is supposed to represent a beautiful June summer day in the great state of Iowa. I'll also share that when you get to this window, look out that window. Across the street, you will see our judicial branch building. You will also see next to the judicial branch building a monument for one of the first cases. And you can see what's that? Yeah, it's a lot. From where we were was 91 up, 91 down.
Why did they make it 91 steps? Why
I don't know if there was a precise number, they just needed enough steps because it was all gas.
That's not the box. That's 300 steps.
It will come, Gundu. If you stand in this direction, why sun is coming? Okay, it will check out sun. Okay, fast, yeah.
ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಮುಂದೆನೇ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ವಾರ್ 2 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಂಥ ಮಿಲಿಟ್ರಿ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಸ್ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಇದ್ದಾರೋ ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಸತ್ತೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೋ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ವಾರ್ 2 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೋ ಅಂಥವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮೆಮೋರಿಯಲ್ ಮಾನ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದು ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಫೈರ್ ಥರ ಇದೆ, ಇದು ಲ್ಯಾಂಪ್ ಥರ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಥರ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ. ನೀವು ಯಾರಾದರೂ ವಿಸಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಇದನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. ಫ್ರೀಡಮ್ ಫ್ಲೇಮ್ ಇದು ಇದ್ರ ಹೆಸರು. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ 1945 ಆಗಿರೋಂಥ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ವಾರ್ಗೆ ಇದು
bullets will not be there now. Nobody shoots bullets now. Yeah, this
ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಇರೋದು ಹಿಂದೆ, ಅದು ಮುಂದೆಯಿಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸಿಟಿ ಈ ಥರ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗು, ಅದೇ ಸಿಟಿ. ತುಂಬ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಸಿಟಿ ತುಂಬ ಕಾಮಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟೆಲ್ಲ ತೆಗ್ದಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೂ ಖಾಲಿ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಇವಾಗ. ಸೊ ಈಗ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ನೀವು ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗು ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ.
Baby